Welcome to the Systems Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
So hello, Adi Klevit here with the Systems Simplified podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing businesses. And today I have a very special guest, Austin Clark. Hi, Austin.
Hey, Adi, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for joining us. So first, I want to let the listeners know that this podcast is being sponsored by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create custom processes and systems for businesses so they can grow and scale. And Austin, I'm sure you will agree that businesses cannot thrive without processes and procedures, right? So
100%.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right.
And that's why you're here, because we're going to talk about that. So I would invite our listeners to go to bizsuccesscg.com and contact us. And now let's start with the podcast. So Austin, why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know about your the name of your company and what do you do? And then let's start talking.
Yeah, no, of course. And thank you, Adi, for having me on. I'm really happy to be here. Just, exchanging the last couple of minutes before the show, I think that we've got a lot in common. And I think that a lot of the same things in business principles as it relates to processes. I think we value a lot of the same things. So this will be fun. My name's Austin Clark, and I own a pest control company in Phoenix, Arizona. It's called Moxie Pest Control. Moxie is a joint venture type of company. And so what I mean by that is there's about 25 locations nationally, and each location is individually owned and operated. And so all of the other partners, they have a principal partner or the founding partner. And then we have our physical locations or physical branches that we run and that we operate under a common website or a common brand. And so it's really been a neat, humbling opportunity to be able to learn from such great, capable, talented people. And then to really be struggling with a lot of the same sorts of things, whether it's hyper growth or employee types of challenges or talent development, customers. I mean, you name it, right? If you have a business, then you have challenges, and when it's growing, you have even more challenges. And so it's been super rewarding and very, very fun. And I started with the company back in 2003, the same year that I graduated high school. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about it. When we talked before, you told me this amazing number. So you started with a certain amount of customers, and now you grew, and not only you're helping with your location, you're helping with all the other locations. And I think that will tie into our, I think, both you and I are very obsessed with systems, right? We are believers in systems, and that's what we want to talk about. So let's talk first of all about the results that you got, and then let's talk about how systems helped you get to those results.
Yeah. And you're right about that. We the Phoenix location started in 2011, and we started with no employees, no customers, no vehicles, nothing, just like every business starts. And as we grew it and scaled it for a couple of years, we kind of grew too quickly and too messily, and we decided to kind of cool off the growth for a little while and focus more on the things that we're passionate about, Adi, the systems and the processes. And as we did that in Phoenix, we have internal scoreboards that help us to measure the health of a branch or the health of a company as it relates to either retention or growth or profitability. And we started to climb to the top of those scoreboards. And what ended up happening is we had different partners that were really growing their locations and branches. And they said, hey, you seem to, have a knack for this. Do you think that while we scale and grow our companies, you could run them for us? And we said, sure, we'd love to be able to do that. And so, back in and this isn't a long time ago, so it's easy to remember, but back in 2016, 2017, we were about a $2 million company, just in Phoenix, Arizona, as far as the one that I was managing, a dozen or so vehicles on the road, 5 or 6 office staff, 3,500 or 4,000 customers. And if you fast forward to today, we manage 40,000 plus customers, over 50,000 or 54,000 subscriptions, probably about 75 office staff in our operations center, and probably about 200 or so plus service people in 7 different markets. So in either San Diego, Orange County, Riverside County, Tucson, Phoenix, Cincinnati, and Columbus. And so, and we're managing about $26 million in business. And we've learned a lot, we've grown a lot, we've broken some of the processes that we put in place. And so we're having to redevelop some of those. But it's been a wonderful learning experience. And so that's kind of where we are now. And that growth trajectory, it's not slowing down much over the next 3 or 4 years.
So exciting. So it's basically 12x in 3 years of where you were before. This is unbelievable. And tell us also, you told me about this exciting book you're working on. So tell me about that one.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I had the opportunity, I have a lot of favorite books, but one of my very favorites that was just so impactful and influential in the way that it shaped the way I think. It shaped a lot of my behavior regarding business and how to approach it. But it's Michael E. Gerber's book, The E-Myth. And I've got the opportunity to be able to, we're probably about 25 to 30% of the way through it right now. But he and I together are co-authoring the E-Myth Pest Control Contractor together. And so that'll be available more towards the end of this year. And that has been, I think it's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity, but that has been a lot of fun being able to work directly with Michael and to, really tout or bring to life some of the systems and processes that we feel have made us successful. I mean, he didn't invent them, but he put them into a format or a book or a story that made them come to life, not just for me, but for hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs, so that they could, see some of the light at the end of the tunnel, or sleep a little bit better at night, and to have their businesses do what they were designed to do, which is to serve their customer, to serve the employees inside of them, the shareholders. And so, yeah, that's been an exciting project.
That is so great. That is incredible. So when do you think the book will come out?
I think that we'll probably wrap it up in the fall. I'd like to be able to have it done and out by this year. The goal is to have it out by the end of 2021. But we'll see how quickly I can write and work, but it's coming together nicely.
That's great. That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your systems. What is your favorite system, or what are some systems that work for you?
Oh gosh. I don't know if anyone's ever asked me what my favorite system is. They're all really, really good. I think that there's, quite literally hundreds of really unique things that we do at Moxie that, if you will, are our secret sauce. The real secret is that there is no secret sauce. It's just doing all of the right things all of the time over a long period of time. I think that that's how people become successful.
Absolutely. We work with a lot of contractors, and one of the things that I find successful, like for successful companies, is developing the system of customer onboarding, right? I mean, when a customer calls you, they want to be heard and they want to be serviced fast, right? And if you don't, from my experience, if you don't have a good, predictable system to onboard, to welcome a new customer, to take their information and get them to service them fast, that can definitely reflect on the company. So I'm sure you have a very good customer onboarding or customer intake system, right?
Yeah, I feel that we do. We have an entire team that does just that. And, here's I think a real good real life example of that. And so I'm a customer of many people, or subscribe to a lot of different things. And I want to say it's a consulting group that we used to work with, but I subscribe to their monthly newsletters. My name's Austin, Austin. It's spelled on this newsletter, they forgot the U. And so it's like Astin. And that's not really that big of a deal. But I notice and I see that every time because I know how to spell my name, and it's not the way that they've got it. And so perhaps there was a, fat finger, as they say, or just an error, but it's incorrect. And that's just my name. But what about the address? It's problematic if you miss a digit on an address. Or what about a digit on a credit card? How do you process payments? Or what about attention to detail, right? As far as like customer preferences in their notes. And so, yeah, customer onboarding is imperative. That will make or break possibly the entire customer journey about how people are onboarded.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's a system like the intake system, the dispatch system, right? I mean, and you also work on subscription, right? Because you have the customers that are subscribing on
Yeah, that's right.
So the subscription have to be, make sure that nobody, that all being taken care of, etc. So those are systems. I just like to give example of systems. So our listeners are wondering, okay, what systems are we talking about? Computer systems? Or are we talking about systems in the business? And I always like to say, it's a combination. You have to have a system, a methodical way of how you do things. So you have a methodical way of how you take client intake, a methodical way of how you take care of your customers that are on maintenance, right? A methodical way of how you take care of your accounts receivables, a methodical way of doing different things. Those are the systems. And then you can take it and you can automate it so it makes sense and it is predictable, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's exactly so. So tell me about how do your staff react to systems? Do they like it? Do they feel more? How do they feel about it?
That's a great question. I think that the answer of, to that would vary depending on who you ask. One of the conversation I was having with one of our managers just as early as today, just this morning, is that, we have a lot of systems or protocols in place that measure productivity. Mm-hmm. We want everyone here to be very productive. And so a few of my favorite systems that revolve around people and productivity are our monthly scorecard reviews or our weekly feedback board reviews, and different things, or our daily training. And, it's interesting to me, people, at least in my organization, that are poor performers or C-level type performers. I think all the organizations out there want A players and B players, and they want their B players to become A players, and their C players, they either need to get out or get up to a B. They feel, and it's probably true, but they feel more micromanaged. And so the system will actually set you free. Rules can free you. And so if you're a poor performer, then you're usually hearing a lot more either about your call points or production or whatever it might be. But if you are serious about results and developing your people and teaching them to be able to perform better or to be able to improve, then they don't feel micromanaged at all. In fact, they have a lot of autonomy, they have a lot of freedom, and they feel good about themselves because everyone wants to do a good job at work. They want to, employees, they really want just a couple of things. One, they want to have a great relationship with the person that's directly supervising them so that if there are issues, they can communicate with that person. And then A players, they want to know every single day, week, month, quarter, year, where they stand as far as how they're performing. Am I doing well? Am I not doing well? Am I ahead of pace? Am I behind? And so I feel our obligation and duty as either owners of companies or managers to be approachable, but then to allow our people to know where they are, even without us being there, so that they know, so that there's no guesswork.
Absolutely. It's the predictability, it's the consistency. And, it's a very good point that you brought up in terms of the systems helping people to have to have predictability, right? So it doesn't block your creativity. It doesn't block your ability to operate. The opposite, right? It allows you to operate better within the company because you know the rules. Because we can all think about a game. If you don't have rules, that game is really not fun, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what you're doing. You're giving them the rules of the game, how to do it. They don't have to reinvent the game every single time, but they also can express themselves and be creative and be themselves and be productive and come up with how to do things better and how to communicate. So all the soft skills that are basically being built on that framework are very much easier to do when you actually have structure. So
that's right.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So we talked about the E-Myth. I love that book as well. Any other books that you would recommend to business owners?
One of the thoughts that I had as we were speaking and I was listening to you, there's another really, maybe you've picked it up or not, but anything that Paul Akers puts out there is incredible. Paul he subscribes to the lean and Kaizen type models of continuous improvement. He is a phenomenal speaker and author. 2 Seconds Lean is one of his books. You can find them all over YouTube. He does lean missions to Japan, and kind of takes things all the way back to the basics, where you'll go and tour elementary schools and you'll see these lean processes in place. So Paul Akers and anything that he puts out there is totally incredible. Have you listened to any of his things, Adi, or have you read any of his books?
I haven't, but I'm going now. Definitely.
Check it out. You might not sleep this weekend, so I hope you didn't have plans. You'll really enjoy it. A lot of his things are just phenomenal. And it has to do with waste. And so I think at the end of the day, on top of the predictability, processes are designed for us to be more productive and in turn less wasteful. And so if we look inside of any organization, physical or virtual or otherwise, we can always be doing more with less. We can always be, work either a little bit quicker or be a little bit more productive. And so, Paul has certainly influenced a lot of the way that I think regarding waste and, doing with the resources that we've got and doing well.
Sure, no, definitely. That is such a great point in terms of being more efficient and less waste. That is definitely being accomplished by having those processes in place, by having those systems. I agree with you. So yeah. Austin, in terms of an advice, I always like to give some advice to our listeners in terms of from your experience. You grew the company from 5 to 6, from 6 staff to 75, 12x the revenue. Let's say we have an entrepreneur, a business owner, that are doing well, they're producing, but they feel like they're spinning the wheels because they're all the time constantly coping. They have no organization, or they have little organization, but they feel like they can't take the break in order to organize, right? Because that's what you said. You said, okay, so we decided, okay, we are going to now organize, because if you can't organize, we can't grow. So what advice would you give to that business owner? Like how would they start? Think about you when you just started, and it's probably was like, okay, phone call after phone call and customer after customer, and and chasing the next job, etc. But then, okay, now 4 years later with this organization, what would you tell that business owner? What should they do?
Yeah, great question, Adi. The first thing I would say is you're not alone. Lots of business owners have been there, are there, and that you can do it. And take comfort in knowing that I've probably made every single mistake that you could possibly make, and that there is light at the end of that tunnel. I would really look at your time. and how, and this is a simple exercise that I do probably twice a year, or more often if I'm feeling overwhelmed. So one of the things that I do not like to hear is when people tell me, oh, I'm sorry, I just don't have the time. If you think about that, that doesn't make any sense at all, because you don't have or time or not have time. Everyone has 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days. We all have the same amount of time. And so don't buy into you don't have time. We all have time. And it's whether we've created the time or allowed the time to be able to work on our business rather than in it. And so the exercise that I do is for 3 days, from whenever I wake up, 5 a.m. to when I go to bed, 10 p.m. or whenever it might be, I write down every hour on the hour what I've done in that hour. And every single time I've done that, I have found that there's things that I'm doing that could be delegated, that I shouldn't be doing at all, that aren't really important. And I find a couple of hours a day every single time I do that. And so I would become very conscientious and protective of your time. The second thing that I would say is you have to start somewhere. And so think about the either question or from employees or inquiry from customers, and start with the lowest hanging fruit first. And then design a process around that, or a resource where people can self-serve themselves so that you don't have to answer that question ever again. You could do that with incredible professional help with people and firms and organizations, Adi, such as you and the work that you do, which is so important. You can do that. I mean, everyone has a smartphone. So if your organization is more visual, just buy yourself a selfie stick and start walking around and making processes out of a smartphone that you have and put it into Google Drive or onto the cloud so everyone can have access to it. Or make a physical, write it out on a piece of paper or put it in, Google Drive or wherever your learning management system or wherever your knowledge base is. Start somewhere, start with the things that are taking the most amount of time. If you need to hire someone to do it, do that. If you don't have the money to do that, find the money to do it and hire that person, and delegate and work on the things that would provide the biggest return on your time, and then go to the next one, and then and you do that for a decade, and all of a sudden you've got a whole library and things are humming along, and life is good.
Austin, I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, that exercise on the time management, I do it. And it is incredible. It's so eye-opening. And I tell my clients to do it as well. And after you make the list, you have to write next to it. I also like to have, you can even do a dollar value next to it. Okay, so that task I just did, how much would you pay somebody to do it? That's the dollar value of it. And you'll find yourself doing tasks that you could easily delegate to somebody else. And there are some tasks that are basically you're paying, it's kind of it's in the negative in terms of actually gaining it, right? Because if you are the rainmaker, if you're the business owner that actually is also the salesperson, it's not only the amount of time that it takes you to do that task, but it's also the lost income that you could have earned by doing something else that is more productive. So I agree with you on that exercise. It's tremendous. And I also agree with you on where to start. You have to start somewhere. So even if you take your phone, I love that advice. You take your phone, you start recording a certain process that you do, or even use a tool like Loom, LOOM.com, right? So you can just have it on your computer that you can record your screen. So let's say you're a bookkeeper and you need to document your processes. Start recording how you process payroll every week. Start recording how you create an invoice. Start recording those things. You will accumulate a library before you know it, right? And then it's 5 years later, you have it, as opposed to having no time, and you don't have anything. So I think your advice is spot on, and people can start doing it right away. And in closing, I would like to ask you one more question about your email signature, which I totally love, and I totally share that concept as well. So tell us how you sign your emails.
My emails, they say, create a great day, and then signed me.
Right. So tell us about create a great day as opposed to have a great day. What's the difference?
Yeah, have a great day. I mean, that's kind of like the time management piece. It doesn't really make any sense. How can you have a great day? And so I think that when people wake up in the morning, we've got one of two choices. We can allow ourselves to be acted upon, or we can choose to have the day that we deserve or want to have. And so create it. And it's, there is a gap between stimulus and response. And so while we might not be able to, decide what happens to us, you know what I mean? We can choose how we react to that. And so everyone inside of them has got the power to be able to create the day that they want rather than have the day that they want. So everyone needs to be out there creating great days, or creating the business that they want, or creating the systems that they want that will lead to the business that they want, or creating the relationships that they want. And so that's kind of where that, I didn't know that you'd picked up on that. And that's kind of where that comes from.
I love it. That's great. Absolutely. Very inspiring. So hope our listeners or viewers, are going to create a fantastic day, a fantastic career, fantastic processes. And if they want to get a hold of you, what is the best way? When the website is right here below us, but any other contact information that you would like to add?
Yeah. They could reach out to me directly if they'd like. My direct email is aclark, it's ACLARK @moxiepestcontrol.com, MOXIE pestcontrol.com. That's probably the best way. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Don't go onto our national site and submit a form. I'll never see it. But yeah, we'd love to be able to talk to anybody about anything that they'd like or that they found interesting.
Fantastic. All right, Austin, well, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. And to our listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Adi.
Thanks for listening to the Systems Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.